In a very short time, it became one of the most popular comics and one of the most popular toys of all time. The guy with the blue hair went and talked to Todd about the success of Spawn. There's a reason here. I feel it. Is it me?
Okay, I'm here at the New York Toy Fair with Todd McFarlane, big Spawn guy. Todd, tell me a little about the Spawn toys you're releasing this year.
You know, it's going to be a big year for us, 97. We've got the HBO animation coming out that's going to spread the gospel a little bit. We've got a big live-action movie coming out later this summer. And we usually have toys coming out, again, in spring, summer, and fall. And because we're going to have the movie line toys out that you know, will basically replicate what you see on the screen.
Do you have any, like, future or secret plans for TMP that you can fill us in on?
You know, we don't really got that many secret plans, you know. It's like, you know, we're more of like, here it is, so you can catch up to us, you know. So we've got an extension of this whole Chaos line, which is an in-house line, just to see if you can actually invent toys with no TV or movie or any comic books, and just see if you can sell toys because they're cool. We've got the Monster line, picking the classic things, and then really, I mean, our big diversification really is our relationship with the band Kiss.
Todd, tell me what went into making these Kiss figures. I mean, did you approach Kiss or did they approach you?
Someone was asking me that, and again, it's, I don't quite know the details of it. I know that a lot of it came out of Gene Simmons is a huge comic book fan, right? And he knows that I'm a comic book guy. He was looking for, you know, another venue that basically spread the gospel of Kiss. And I just thought that they look like superheroes up on stage, and two, they look like toys. And better than that, they look like McFarlane toys. I don't think any other company would have done for them what I think that we could do, that we'd give them all that little detail, and we'd paint all those little rivets, and we'd actually make them look like little mini statues again.
Awesome. Todd McFarlane, rock and roll all night and party every day.
I'm sure.
Hey, you're good. You're a little too good. Obviously, you've been to a couple.
I've seen enough, yeah. Talk about coming to the convention. How important is it for a company this size to get here?
Well, it is very important. Obviously, San Diego is the biggest convention of the year. San Diego and Chicago are probably the most important shows that we go to. San Diego is obviously the place to go. So it's fun to meet the people that buy your book. You know, it really is. It's fun to get the feedback from them. It's fun to talk to them. I mean, these guys are great. All the fans are great. They come in, they want to know what you're thinking, and I want to know what they're thinking. And believe it or not, we actually take their word and we bring it into the comics and their advice. A lot of these guys have great opinions of the characters. They love the characters. They want to hear what they want to see the characters doing. We have a massive crossover between Top Cow and Marvel coming out for December. Big news, fight right there. And it's going to be beautiful. It's 8 issues. It has one story snaking through all 8 issues. It's not just one of those deals where, oh, gee, okay, Wolverine happens to be running down the street and he gets a bruise on his toe and one of our characters goes and helps him out. It's not like that. It's a real story that affects the continuity of both Marvel and Top Cow from that point on to the whole future.
So any advice for, say, first-time conventioneers?
Just come in and have a good time. Spend some cash. That's part of the fun. You come in here and you buy comics, you buy original artwork, you meet with professionals.
Come out and see these guys.
Yeah, it's fun.
All right, well, thanks for talking to us.
Enjoy the show.
How do I look? Just kidding. I traveled from Los Angeles to La Jolla to talk to a bunch of stylish guys here at Wildstorm Productions. So why don't you guys introduce yourselves and say what comics you work on?
I'm Tom Rarian, and I work on Stormwatch.
I'm Matt Broom, and I work on Wildcats.
I'm Jim Lee. I'm working on Wildcats.
I'm J. Scott Campbell. I'm on Templar on Gentric.
I'm Richard Bennett, and I work on Brush.
My name is Javon Kirby. You call me JJ, and I work on Backlash.
My name is Ryan Benjamin and I work on Iron Man.
Okay, so first off, how important is costume design to a character?
When you do a character design, you spend a lot of time developing a character so that they can be animated. And nowadays, you think of them a lot in the context of multimedia.
Okay, well, where do you get your ideas for the costumes that you have to do for the fashion consultant?
We steal them from Jim's sketchbook. A lot of it actually comes from fashion. I watch a lot of VH1 and MTV and fashion guys.
Jim Lee rules the world with an iron fist.
A lot of designers and stuff, kind of things they do, I think, are actually influenced by things we do, and we're influenced by them because we tend to do very weird, kind of very slinky, tight, highly reflective costumes.
I pick up ideas from everywhere. It's like, if you got it, I'm taking it and making it mine. It's just like I gave myself a seatbelt. I bought a seat. Check it out. It's right, you know what I'm saying? I got a seatbelt and it works, you know what I'm saying? Hey.
Well, what do you do to make the outfit original?
It's influenced by real life things, like, when the Gulf War was happening, you saw images of soldiers and those big moving superheroes that have belts with pouches and it look like, basically a pouch, and they never use them for anything, but they look kind of cool.
It's a fine line between making a costume look too complex versus the fact that you have to draw it over and over and over again.
The characters have to have their own personality and it should come out in their costume. And if you got 50 guys standing around, you got to be able to figure out which guy's which. Even if it's a little tiny shot, you got to be able to know who's who.
A really coolly designed logo can really say a lot about it.
Or just the fact that if you see a silhouette of Batman, you just see the ears. I mean, it's recognizable as Batman. It doesn't get confused for anything else. And I think sometimes that kind of simplicity, at least an element of that, is a good thing to throw into a costume. Like, I think there's a character in Gen 15, Freefall, and her distinguishing point is that she's got pink in her hair. And I think hopefully you don't distinguish or confuse her for any other character in the comic book universe simply because nobody else has a little pink stripe in their hair.
The kinds of comics we do, it's actually part of the character that changes comics to show that, we don't wear the same clothes, the same kinds of the same style of clothes year in, year out. It changes and it's superhero reflective.
So, what's the superhero costume that's influenced you the most?
Personally, I tried not just towards the comic books, but fashion, other countries and other fashions going on in other parts of the world, and movies, television shows. I mean, you have to pretty much be influenced by everything if you're going to try to come up with something new.
This comic lets Jim Lee of Image and X-Men fame retell the story of how the Fantastic Four were born. It's cool to see this done now because you can consider whether Fantastic Four #1 would have sold had it been released today. I'm happy to say the classic is still the best, though Jim Lee actually does a very good version of the legendary tale. He leaves the story pretty much the same, which is good. I can think of about 1 million comic fans who would get out their lightsabers if he had messed around with it. The art is also fun to see since it's based on the original early comic style, but it still has a very Image feel to it. Fantastic Four #1 is a must-buy if you missed it the first time around. Then again, if you didn't miss it the first time around, you should probably get your prostate checked. I give it 3.5 out of 5 G's on the anti-gravity scale. Last we have Star Wars Shadows of the Empire #5. For all you Star Wars junkies out there, you can finally have a fix. This story takes place right after the Empire strikes back, and it's loads of fun. For some reason, Princess Leia just can't seem to resist an alien when she knows she loves Han Solo. What will she do? What I don't get is, when did Chewie get a crew cut? The art captures the Star Wars feel fairly well, but it's put on Earth, a super suit of armor, kind of like an overseas Iron Man. There's a significant cyber culture aspect to this comic. Most of Guyver's enemies have to deal with computers. With an emphasis on the psychology of violence, this issue is a little different from the norm of this series, which is usually blood and guts shoot 'em up. This issue also proves to me that the writer can still maintain the quality of the comic without a lot of violence. As for the art, it's awesome, a beautiful mix of simplicity and detail. This book falls under the cyber category because it features Barbara Gordon, ex-Batgirl and newly dubbed Oracle, a female computer hacker supreme. From her computer station, Oracle helps Black Canary with everything from finding building schematics to gun designs. Together the two infiltrate Roderick Tower. The surprise ending introduces the other two birds of prey, Catwoman and Huntress, and the stage is set for either a confrontation or the birth of a new superhero team. The book features a very textured art, reminiscent of Strangers in Paradise. On the writing end, Chuck Dixon does a great job of portraying these female characters. Birds of Prey looks like it's going to be a fun series, so I give this book 3 3/4 of a G on the anti-gravity scale. Next up, the Techno Girl of the Future, the past of Cyberella, with parallels to cartoon history all over the place. This comic also features great artwork by Don Cameron, who adds a very dark happiness to the feel of the book.
Started in 1992 when Mark Silvestri, a famous artist at Marvel Comics, decided to start his own boutique studio. And since he did that, we have grown to become one of the most popular comic book studios in the country, in the world. Top Cow Comics launched Cyberforce in 1992, and since then it has grown to become one of the most popular superhero teams on the market, as well as producing Weapon Zero, Witchblade, 21. Oh yeah, and Top Cow's newest and hottest title, The Darkness.
To make Cap the superhero, they've turned him into a Super Zero. This is Cap with a bigger chest than most of the girls in the Chrono Comics booth. This is not happening. There's zero background. There's zero story. We should be fair. It's an uncompleted issue. It's not ready yet. There's no dialogue balloons or anything, but you can pretty much gauge what's there, and what's there is not much.
Totally. Rob Liefeld, you're a nice guy, but this kind of bites. So I have to give this like 1.5 out of 5 Gs on the anti-gravity scale. Next up, we have Batman Grendel, crossover book. Very cool by Matt Wagner of Grendel. Kevin, what did you think of this?
This is a tremendous book. This is what comics is all about. It's exciting, it's educational, it's well written, and God is it beautifully drawn. Batman meets one of the most immortal characters of independent comics the last 10 years, Grendel. This time the Grendel Prime. Fantastic book.
Now I understand you particularly liked it. You bought a lot of the artwork of this?
I bought a lot of original artwork, you know. It's like Matt draws really well. He draws a real cut Batman. He's got a huge chin. Fantastic.
It's a great book. I gotta give it like 4.5 out of 5 Gs on the anti-gravity scale because it's just so good.
I give it the 5 Gs all the way.
Oh, man.
This book is a hit on a stick.
All right, well, thank you. This week we'll be talking about the history of women in comics. And I'm not just talking figures either. We're talking writers, artists, inkers, whatever. All this and more on the Anti-Gravity Room. All the comics. Crime fighters, supervillains, ray guns, muscle men, and women with really great armbands. Sure, there are plenty of female comic characters with their own series now, but that hasn't always been the case. And to help me out on this daring retrospective is one of the most powerful people at Marvel, editor-in-chief of such books as Marvel Edge 2099 books, is Bobby Chase.
In the beginning, women characters were in strictly supporting roles. Comic books were a boys' own adventure series, and women were just the helpless damsels in distress, or at best, the main character's girlfriend.
In 1938, Lois Lane became the first major female character in comics. But female superheroes did not really begin until 1941 with Wonder Woman. The 40s also sprung the introduction of Batman's love interest / arch-enemy Catwoman.
As the war was ending, women were just depicted in pin-ups or as cheesecake characters. But Rosie the Riveter changed a lot of that. At the end of the war, career gal comics were born.
In 1956, Batwoman made her debut, supporting such chic crime-fighting accessories as a utility handbag with smoke bomb lipstick and tear gas perfume.
In the 60s, comics got more liberated and women started getting stronger roles. In 1961, with the creation of the Fantastic Four came Sue Storm, the Invisible Girl.
In 1967, Batgirl Barbara Gordon made her debut as part of a spin-off of the campy TV show Batman.
In the early 80s, another Marvel character, the Savage She-Hulk, developed her own unique personality at the hands of Marvel founding father Stan Lee, and was later revamped as the Sensational She-Hulk. The mid-80s also saw the popularity of a lot of new female characters such as Elektra, Phoenix, Storm, Rogue, Jubilee. They were strong women, heroes and leaders in their own right.
Batgirl Barbara Gordon had been shot by the Joker and became paraplegic. Ms. Gordon has since become the Oracle, DC's premier computer hacker, and keeping right in step with the times.
Nowadays, more realistic images of women are appearing in various comics. Marvel's Typhoid Mary is a limited series that deals with much more adult issues like prostitution, serial killing, and mental illness, and is written by female writer Ann Nesenti.
One notable female character is Death from Neil Gaiman's Sandman, a totally different interpretation of the old Grim Reaper and a character with a large following. Tank Girl, an 80s alternative comic, became a major Hollywood motion picture in 1995.
Female leaders are now no longer the exception but the rule at Marvel.
It's not just Black Widow, but Scarlet Witch is now the leader of Forceworks, Storm is the leader of the X-Men, White Queen is the leader of Generation X, and the Invisible Woman, no longer the Invisible Girl, is the leader of the Fantastic Four. Things are definitely changing once again.
So now there are all kinds of different female comic characters in dozens of different titles. And realistic or not, somebody's got to be making these books. So are a lot of women drawing, writing, and producing these four-color vixens?
Well, I don't really know any female comic book creators, no.
No.
I don't know.
I really don't know at this present time.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I think they're female comic book creator. Her name's Julie Bell, and she created the line of Sentinels that are in X-Men comics.
Now I have to say, especially with the big three and the major indies, there aren't a lot of female comic book artists and writers. Now why is that? Don't females want to get into comic books? Well, Nick was at the San Diego Comic Book Convention, and he asked that very question to Heidi McDonald, the strong voice behind Friends of Lulu.
We are here, Heidi McDonald, at Friends of Lulu. Now, why don't you tell our viewers what exactly is Friends of Lulu? Friends of Lulu is an organization for women in comics. Our goals are increasing female participation in comics and readership in comics. Because, unfortunately, right now, it's kind of low. I mean, women make up more than 50% of the population, but they make up about 10% of the comics reading public. Don't get me wrong, I read superheroes when I was a kid, but it really is aimed mostly at the fantasies of teenage adolescent boys. And I have nothing against that, and neither does our organization. We just think that there should be fantasies for teenage adolescent girls and adult women and little girls and everyone. Yeah, she's got a point. Women buy mysteries, women buy horror, women buy romance, and publishers who put out horror books find that they have a ready-made audience of women, readers. For instance, the Anne Rice interview with the vampire books, women would come to the stores. Those books sold mostly to women. So there's no question that when you do material that women are interested in, they will read it, they will buy it, they will read it. This is kind of the convention from a woman's point of view. I don't know if you can see this. This is a little thing I did. Okay. I took this as the Diamond catalog for the month of July. This is the distributor catalog. Okay, right. Okay. And every page that had a scantily clad woman on it, I put a post-it on. Hi-yo! That's a lot.
Okay, I'm here talking to comic book legend. Stanley, how you doing, Stan?
Okay, I'm going to change my name to Legend. Make it easy for everybody.
You're making your middle name, Stan Legend Lee.
I like that.
You like that? Now, did you think Marvel Comics would have made it this far when you started?
Oh, no. When we started, we never thought that Marvel would become the institution that it is. We were just hoping we'd come up with some books that would sell so that we wouldn't get fired or maybe one day get a raise. I mean, it was just a job, and we never dreamt that all of these characters that we came up with. There was Jack and I, who did the X-Men and the Fantastic Four and the Hulk and Thor, S.H.I.E.L.D., and there was Bill Everett, who did Daredevil with me. And then there was Steve Ditko, who did Spider-Man and Doctor Strange, and Don Heck, who drew Iron Man. We were just doing strips. We never thought that more than 30 years later, these would still be among the best-selling books in the world.
Did you have more fun in the beginning when Marvel was just starting up?
Years ago, I did much more actual writing than I do today. And even though I used to think I really hate to write, because it's a lonely job. I mean, some people can watch television or listen to the radio while they write. Not me. I have to be locked up in a room, just me and my computer. And I was sort of glad to stop doing it, but now I miss it. There's nothing wrong with the format of a comic book, with illustrations coupled with words. It just depends how well you do it. If you do it like a master, you're creating something great. If you're not very good at it, it's just another thing thrown out for the public. I think a couple of years from now, you're going to see more Marvel movies on the screen, and they're all going to be big movies. And from what I've seen of the stories and from the people that we're working with, the writers and the directors and the producers, I would say they're going to be very big movies.
Now, when you hear guys like me call you a comic book legend, what does that make you think?
Oh, I love it. I mean, 30 years ago, I never thought anybody would call me a legend. My only problem is I thought you're supposed to wait till you're dead before someone calls you a legend. But yeah, it's fun. I'm getting used
to Superman a little bit. He's not as strong as he used to be. He's not as vulnerable. So when he has these huge, gargantuan fights, there's a sense that this guy can actually die. Nice one, Clark. When he lifts things now, there's a sense of weight to it, and there's a sense of struggle, and it makes just a better dramatic scene.
He's a very 90s, vulnerable Superman. A couple of new writers that we're trying out on the show are Evan Dorkin and partner Sarah Dyer. Evan is very well known for a current comic book called Milk and Cheese, which is a very wild, riotous, out there type of comic book, and that's what first attracted me to him as a potential writer for the show. We were really looking for writers who could bring a nice modern spin onto Superman.
One of the challenges of the series has been to create a look for the series that would be as unique to Superman as the look of the Batman animated series was to Batman. A big aspect of that was the city of Metropolis. We didn't want it to look just exactly like New York, so we kind of went a little bit more futuristic with it. It's much bigger than New York City. It's like we keep saying the World Trade Center would be a small building in Metropolis. It's layers and layers and layers of city on top of each other, but at the same time, aesthetically, it's very pleasing. It doesn't feel like a big claustrophobic city. It's actually very uplifting and optimistic as opposed to the Batman Gotham City, which was all very dark and angular. Another big plus for me was the science fictional aspect of the series as opposed to Batman. We have a lot more giant robots and spaceships and battle scenes.
One of the things we wanted to do, especially in the early episodes, is play up the alien factor of Superman's nature. He does not stick around for praise if he saves someone. He's not a hands-on-the-hips type of,
Thank you, Commissioner. It's all in a day's work.
Yeah, none of that. In fact, at the beginning, he really doesn't even like the name Superman. It's a name that Lois Lane kind of christens him with in print, and he wonders how can I possibly live up to that?
He's a Superman for the millennium.
A comic. Kevin, what do you think of this?
As far as comic adaptations go of movies, usually they use very straightforward artwork, looks like it, but if you look in the inside of this book, it's not. It's kind of different. It's kind of stylish. I like that. As far as the story, it's kind of been there before, although there are some interesting picks.
Well, I liked it, but I'd like to see it in black and white even more. That's the way the Crow was done originally. So I have to give this like 3 out of 5 Gs on the anti-gravity scale. All right, next up we got Ash, number 0. Now this book has gotten lots of acclaim from the comic world. Now they're doing a movie deal with DreamWorks. It's going to be an animated film. What do you think of this, Kevin?
Ash Book 0 is kind of a predecessor to Ash 1, of course. And it tells the story of kind of where Ashley's powers came from, and it involves the future Ash, if you will. The great thing about this book, beautiful, beautiful art by the boys, and not only that, but the artists are also the writers, and Jimmy and Joe can write. It's a very classically woven tale. It weaves in a bit of normalcy in terms of like they take a fireman who is a heroic character in real life and make him into a superhero. For that alone, they deserve all the acclaim. Beautiful book, give it 4.5 Gs.
It's an all-around great book. It's got like image-style art, but at the same time, like you said, great story. I'd have to give it 4 Gs. Next up, we've got the comic epic Kingdom Come. This is 404, the end of the whole series. What do you think of this, Kevin?
Well, Kingdom Come, it has to be reviewed on 2 levels. Now, of course, the artwork is gorgeous. It's Alex Ross artwork. There's tons of mad cameos from former DC Universe people and just all sorts of comic tie-in stuff. You can't get better than this art, man. He's a mad genius. The writing, however, they tried to cram a lot of story into 4 issues. They should have tried for a maxi series, but instead they chose to do it in 4 bookshelf format books. I'd give the art, man, 5 Gs. Maybe I'd go 6 Gs. I'd lift to 6 Gs for the art. Story, I'd give 3 Gs.
Well, this is a great book. It's an all-around awesome book. The coolest part about it, though, Kevin, is that Alex Ross drew me in.
Get out of here.
No, serious? Oh, wait. No, that's what he was supposed to do. In that case, I have to give this book 0 out of 5 Gs on the anti-gravity scale. Wow, okay, point 9.
Taking Yuyo in love. Typical boy finds girl, boy loses girl, both die in a hail of bullets scenario. Or something like that.
Senshi, the movie, was the very first project we've done halfway in Japan and halfway in the U.S. we started Tenchi Muyo from video. And then later on, based on the popularity of the video, we introduced comic books to the fans. And here in the U.S., we are trying to do the same thing. Now, actually, many Tenchi Muyo episodes is available on video. And now we just started to work on the American comic version of the Tenchi Muyo. Tenchi Muyo is a hybrid action comedy. And this time, the movie version is a little bit more serious type of story compared to the episodic straight to home video or OVA type, bullet in the past. It was more like comedy rather than like science fiction. All of the main characters gonna, make a time trip to 26 years ago, and then try to save main character Tenchi's mother.
I was working in my subspace laboratory when I suddenly monitored a temporal misalignment. Something has caused the timeline revolving around the Masaki family to shift. If we don't do something, it won't be just Tenchi's history that changes. It'll be ours, too.
Tell me who you are.
I've come all the way to this planet in the middle of nowhere to destroy.
The Hulk is making a comeback. Lou Ferrigno, the original live-action Hulk, will be doing the voice of the big green guy in the new cartoon coming this fall. We caught up with the gamma-radiated Mr. Universe himself. So tell us about the Incredible Hulk animated series.
It's hard to believe the first time we have the first TV animated Hulk TV series with myself doing the voiceover with an incredible cast. And it's going to be a very, very exciting show.
Are there any changes to the character or storyline?
Yes, it's very updated. According to like the new comic books, you have many different characters on the show. And in this show, the Hulk gets a chance to speak, express, and every episode is an adventure. We have an incredible cast. We got Luke Perry playing Rick Jones, Betty being played by Gene Francis, Gargoyle by Mark Hamill, and Charlotte Caesar playing Doc Samson. Also, Neil McDonald plays Bruce Banner.
What's it like returning to a role after such a long absence?
Well, it's wonderful because, first of all, I've done the live-action TV series, and now I get to play the voice and do the dialogue because it was always frustrating to me on the TV series that he didn't speak. So now he gets a chance to speak, I get a chance to do that. It brings back a lot of memories, and it brings back, it's kind of like putting the icing on the cake.
What brought you back to the Hulk character?
I've been the Hulk my whole life. I love how sensitive he is, sympathetic he is, emotional he is, how people see him as a monster but not as a creature. He's a creature. He has a very soft heart.
All friends?
Did you read the Hulk comic book?
Oh, yes. I mean, it was my first comic book. I mean, the Hulk and Superman. I've had thousands and thousands of Hulk comic books. I've literally studied them. I mean, I was like, I lived the character of the Hulk. I mean, I was like absorbed in the comic book.
I'm Trish in LA. Manga and anime have been an immense concern to our viewers, and we've responded to your letters the best way we know how, by organizing a show about anime and manga. After we finish our cappuccino.
Konnichiwa, arigatou gozaimasu. We've got upcoming projects from Manga Entertainment, Paul Pope, and a hot story direct from Hong Kong. I'm Phil in Toronto, and this is the Anti-Gravity Room. For those of you whose only exposure to anime has been Sailor Moon, pay very close attention to this episode. We're going to start you off slow. Now on to Paul Pope, creator of THB. Okay, we're here with Paul Pope, famous for THB, and currently working on some Japanese stuff. with manga. How you doing, Paul?
Great, how you doing?
Good. So tell us real quick how their career started.
Well, I started in comics. I self-published two things I called drawn novels. Then I went into THB, which is the strip I'm known for in the States. And then about a year ago, I started working on the manga for a Japanese publisher.
And the publisher's called?
Kodansha. And they're the biggest in Japan. They did Akira.
Now tell us about Super Trouble.
Well, Super Trouble is a strip that is similar to THB in the sense that the stories are centered around teenage girls. And the idea of Super Trouble is that the two teenage girl protagonists can't help but get into super trouble when they get together.
So why do you think the Japanese publishers thought your stuff would be good for the Japanese market?
They were interested in sort of the exotic idea of an American doing, regular cartoon strip in Japan. And they also thought that I could tell the kind of stories that would make my work manga next to the other Japanese artists.
Did you have to change your art style for the Japanese market?
It looks the same. That was a concern of mine at first, because I said, I can't do the big-eyed style. But they said, no, we want Paul Pope, so do your own style. The only thing I'm doing to accommodate the publishing in Japan is that I'm working right to left.
How different is Super Trouble going to be from THB?
There's a big difference, actually. When I first started, I was telling people that Super Trouble is a THB remix. But that's entirely untrue, because as I've developed the story, the characters are able to do things that the THB characters haven't done. It's really important in manga to have strong characters and a strong sense of characterization.
Now, it seems Japanese manga and even anime is really big right now. What do you think of that?
Well, I think that it's really exciting, and it's exotic to people in the West, because you have a sense that this is a fully fleshed out first world culture that we're sort of tapping into. It has a different set of social mores, a different set of myths that things are based upon, and a different art history that, and a different technology. Everything's different. So I think people sense that, and it's very exciting. But I brought a copy of my favorite manga, and this is more like the work I'm doing in Japan than anything else. And this is called Popo Ako. It's by a guy named Masayuki Soma. And this is, to me, this is the best manga.
All right, Paul. Thanks a lot for talking to us.
All right, thank you.
Paul Pope.
The Anti-Gravity Room went on a little road trip recently. We booked a trip to shoot comics in Azerbaijan, but our production assistant put our luggage on the wrong flight. Our equipment went to Hong Kong. It was picked up by some kind Samaritans who went out and shot this story for us. Now, manga, direct from the Far East.
I'm here at the Tinha headquarters with the chief artist, Português. Thank you very much for joining. Tinha is the most popular comic book in Hong Kong. Tell us what Tinha is about.
The story revolves around two brothers who study under the same kung fu master. When the master tries to deceive them, they band together to survive. The comic follows their adventures as they travel around the country.
Does Tinha deal with social issues?
The main message in the story is to help less fortunate people and to fight against evil.
So do you think that Tinha would appeal to foreign audiences as well?
The story is quite unique and different from the stories you would find in the West. There are a lot of references to ancient China and Chinese traditions.
How does the style of Hong Kong comics differ from that of the West?
I think the production quality is very good in both the East and the West. Asian stories and styles tend to focus on human relationships, while Western comics often emphasize the art and dialogue. These are a few comics I like, especially Spawn. I sometimes use these ideas to influence my work.
What do you see in the future for the Hong Kong comic book industry?
The comic book industry is booming. Hong Kong is such an open society. We absorb influences from Japan, America, and other countries, and we combine the best of these together. I see a great future for Hong Kong comic books.
Me and manga gets over to North America? So did we. Manga Entertainment told us that a big plane brings it over. We thought there was more to the story, so we kept digging and discovered it really does come over on a big plane. Go figure.
Okay, I'm here with Lawrence Ginnis, he works for Manga Entertainment as Director of Acquisition, Production, and Development. Now, what does that mean?
Okay, I'm responsible for acquiring, that means buying programs and films, everything that Manga releases.
What do you look for when you're looking for an anime series?
We're looking for, the manga ethos, the manga style now has become synonymous with action, with incredible imagination, with explosive action, with camera angles that you could hardly ever do in real life with a real camera. We're looking for things that make the most use of animation, things that could never be done in live action, things that give a bold vision of the future, things that are dynamic, things that are technological entertainment. That's what we're looking for, technological entertainment, things with cutting-edge style, with incredible music, incredible graphics, that we can release, that we can produce and promote, and I think that's what our audience is looking for too.
How does the production of an anime film differ from the production of a live-action film?
Well, fundamental difference with animation is everything is created by a human hand. These are kind of handcrafted, hand-built films. There's no live actors, everything is drawn, everything is imagined, everything is crafted by teams of people. You've got, anything upwards of 100 people working on these films for between 12 to 18 months, even up to 3 years in some cases. At the moment, I'm working on some really exciting films. Our next thing that we're going to be releasing is the Street Fighter TV series, which we'll be finding some great music for. We'll be finding some great actors for the voices. It'll be a very exciting series. We're looking to find the very best technological entertainment, high drama, high action, big imagination, things that can be produced that you can't do in live action. Explosive, dynamic, entertaining, animated films that are aimed at adult audiences. We're not making films for kids here. We're making films for sophisticated audiences that want and appreciate the dynamic style, the cutting-edge, innovative style that manga is all about. The future of the kind of anime we want to produce is finding great scripts, great music, working with the most talented directors in Japan, and bringing together, creating a fusion of ideas, imagination, and using new technologies to produce more cutting-edge entertainment, more fantastic animated entertainment. The biggest production challenge for us is in really bringing together, making it happen, finding the great scripts, working with directors, making them see how big the audience is outside of Japan, inspiring people, inspiring directors and writers, musicians, to believe in the future of animated entertainment for adult, sophisticated audiences.
From the Book of Tea, citing a Ming author, a translation at its best is only the reverse side of a brocade. All the threads are there, but not the subtlety of color or design. Film it. Torrance Smith is trying to correct this problem at Dark Horse.
Whoa, when did the anti-gravity room get so zen? Lighten up, you guys. Carry on. You'll never take my baby! Ah!
Hi, my name is Torrance Smith. I'm the president of Studio Proteus, and here we are in San Francisco. We publish Japanese comics called manga, along with Dark Horse Comics, and it's a very interesting world, and I think you'll be very interested to find out about it. Back in 1982, I've been writing some comic books, and a friend of mine showed me some Japanese animation, a thing called Cagliostro Castle, and that's by Miyazaki, and it was just incredible. I couldn't believe it. I'd never seen anything like it. And when I found out that there were comics to go with these great Japanese animation things, I was in heaven. I'd say the primary difference between manga and most North American or, in general, worldwide comics is that manga comes from a completely different background. I mean, a completely different cultural background, social background, and so they just take a different approach to things.
Our intended audience is basically anyone who is interested in entertainment, because that's what these comics are. They're not comic books the way you remember them. These are comic books that are pure entertainment. Just as if you'd walk into a video store and look for a good movie, there's all kinds of movies there, everything you could imagine. In Japanese comics, there's everything you can imagine.
The actual translation of the comics from Japanese into English is one of our greatest challenges, of course, the languages being so completely and totally different. I think that we make a real strong effort to make the translations as idiomatic as possible. The idea behind it being, what are these comics? They're entertainment. And you don't want entertainment to be hard to understand. You don't want it to be hard to read. You want the person to read it and get the same experience in English that he got when he was reading it in Japanese. I think that the best artist in America right now for doing manga-style artwork is, without a question, Adam Warren. This is his latest series, Fatal But Not Serious, in full color. And as you can see, the man really knows what he's doing. Really knows how to draw in the manga style.
All right, folks, we're here with Art Adams, super comic guy, creator of Monkey Man and O'Brien. Now, Art, tell us a little about Monkey Man and O'Brien.
Monkey Man is a 10-foot-tall gorilla from another dimension who's a scientific whiz. When he's accidentally pulled to our world, Anne O'Brien is bathed in extra-dimensional radioactive energy, which causes her to grow to be 7 feet tall and incredibly strong, and they have adventures and stuff. I thought about it for a little while, and I remembered how much I loved King Kong, and so hence I have a giant gorilla and a beautiful girl and lots of monsters.
Now, I noticed in your style you've got some influence from manga and anime. What manga or anime book, cartoon has influenced you the most?
One of my favorites, Masamune Shiro, who does Appleseed and Ghost in the Shell. His stuff is just so energetic. I really like that.
What do you think attracts North Americans the most about Japanese anime and manga?
I would have to guess it's the energy and partly that it's just not regular American superhero comics. Even though the books are 200 pages long, they'll have a 60-page fight sequence, which it's just so dynamic and energetic that it's got to be influential.
And do you think the manga anime influence on artists is a temporary fad, or do you think it's here to stay?
I think that Japanese comics are now more available in the United States. I think that's why most people didn't know about them years ago. You could only find them in specialty Japanese stores. Now, lots of the publishers are reprinting a lot of the Japanese books. I think it's probably here to stay.
What manga character would you like to see done as an American comic, or vice versa?
What I like is Godzilla, Ultraman, and Gamera. So I would love to do an Ultraman comic book someday.
Cool.
Sure.
Well, thanks a lot, Art.
I feel a romance.
As Sarah investigates the origin of this odd item, she finds she's involved in something that goes much deeper than she thought. The writing is pretty good, but I was disappointed at the demeaning attire some of the women in this book are put in. The art is absolutely great. It totally took me by surprise. The guys at Top Tower are some of the biggest talents in their field.
What is her skin-tight costume revealed her curves. Now, no one ever says Superman's skin-tight costume reveals his masculine, bulging biceps. They only say this about women. Today in comics, the superheroine has fallen. It's really sad how low she has fallen in this male-dominated industry.
Batman.
Dos maiores desenhistas do momento fala sobre os personagens e a moda.
I'm Jim Lee. I'm working on Wildcat Section.
E o porquê do novo uniforme do super-homem?
Why not?
Hi, boys.
In fact, the DC also plans to make Jimmy Olsen look and talk like Ice Cube. Now I got a laptop computer. I'm so tired of the old Superman. What's a kid to do? Wow, it's Mike Carlin!
Just the executive editor of the DC Universe, also known as the man who killed Superman.
Wow! What are you doing here, Mike?
I heard your cries for help, little Nicky, and I'm here to tell you all about the new Superman.
Wow! Tell us about the new Superman, Mike.
Well, the new Superman has found himself sadly genetically altered. He is now a being of pure energy. Bullets do not bounce off him anymore, they pass through him. He doesn't fly anymore, he zaps from one place to another, much like I do.
Why the change?
Why not?
Wow! Who was involved in the decision, Mike?
Well, all the writers and artists who work on the Superman comics regularly thought this was a good idea, and I guess I'm the man who let it happen.
How will this affect Superman, Mike?
This will change Superman for the foreseeable future. He will now be a being of energy. He will save the world in many different ways. What will not change is that he still stands for truth, justice, and the American way.
Is this change forever, Mike?
Forever. An interesting concept. We never say never at DC Comics, but we also never say forever.
Wow!
I would like to ask the general public of North America to please stop worrying about Superman. He's in good hands with DC Comics.
How do the fans feel about the new costume, Mike?
Oddly enough, the older human beings feel very distressed.
while the younger life forms say it's cool.
Wow!
In Japan, comic books and animation are big business. Comic books are known as manga. There's hundreds of titles and they're read by everyone from kids to housewives to businessmen. Animation is known as anime and has a similar wide appeal. Nick went to talk to anime and manga expert Koichi Ohata.
Alright, we're here with Koichi Ohata. He is the creator and artist of such anime titles as Genocyber and MD Geist. Where does anime come from?
昔何かの本で読んだ記憶があるんです。I read some book a while ago, and it said that anime evolved from the word called anima, which means life.
よし、カメラスタート。
Difference between American comics and Japanese comics?
日本のコミックスは I used to think that Japanese comic books are more story driven and the U.S. comics are full of characters and colors and very good designs. But now it's been changing and Japanese comic books also have very interesting character designs and backgrounds, and the U.S. comic books stories are more developed than before, and it's getting much more interesting to read.
Some manga and anime tends to be quite violent, but there's a low crime rate in Japan. Do you have any thoughts on that?
アニメーションや映画がその犯罪を助長するというか別に応援しているわけじゃないと思うんですけれども I don't think there is any relation between the crime rate and the violence of the animation. I think human beings unconsciously have this tendency to like violence, to get excited. And animation is an entertainment form to give this kind of opportunity for human beings to realize that.
From Japan, we travel to the former Anime Crash here in Greenwich Village in New York City. This store specializes in Japanese comics, animation, models, you name it. And what do you know, I just happen to have 3 Japanese comics with me right now. The first one is Mai, the Psychic Girl. Imagine you're Mai, the Psychic Girl. She can change the outcome of baseball games, make books fall off shelves, or get traffic lights to change when men are chasing after her just by thinking about it. The reason these men are after her is because when they disguised a psychokinetic test inside my school midterms, they discovered that she is a psychic. It's a real mind-expanding Japanese comic book, and I give it 4 out of 5 G's on the anti-gravity scale. Next, we meet a girl named Pi in 3 times 3 eyes, and when she brushes the hair off of her forehead, you can see that Pi is a super zombie. Pi does her best to warn her friend named Yukumo that he is also a super zombie, but he doesn't want to hear about it. Yukumo just wants to hang out with his motorcycle friends, living a normal life. Until, wham! He's splattered all over the highway, and sure enough he finds that he is a super zombie too. So remember, if someone tells you you're a zombie, they just might be right. This book has great art that embodies the spirit of manga, and I give it 3.5 G's on the anti-gravity scale. In Fist of the North Star, we see dark fantasies like crumbling highways and rough motorcycle gangs. I'm not sure if the translation is giving me the whole story, but it's definitely a change from American comics to see a hero who's so concerned with finding water. Fist of the North Star is an anime classic, but compared to all the great stuff there is out there now, it only gets 3 Gs on the anti-gravity scale. Anime is a great genre for crazy stuff, and I suggest you all pick up something from our friends in Japan. Sayonara. Expert Joe Manarino. Gee, I hope he knows something about snow globes. Okay, I'm here with Joe Manarino, comic book expert. Now, how did you become a comic book expert? Did you start out as a collector?
Actually, I did. I started reading comics probably just a little bit before your age, and I started collecting and actually learned how to read, associating the pictures with the words, and I was lucky. My mom never threw my comics away.
Hooked on Fantastic Four phonics. Now, can you show us some of your higher-end books that you'll be auctioning off at your next Totally Cool Christie's auction?
Sure. Well, Nick, you mentioned Fantastic Four #1, and we happen to have one of the finest copies of Fantastic Four #1. And then we also have things like the first appearance of Spider-Man, or actually, in this case, Spider-Man #1. Most people don't realize that Spider-Man didn't actually appear in #1. He first appeared in a book called Amazing Fantasy 15. Also, Wonder Woman, the first real heroine in comics, she appeared in Wonder Woman #1. And here's another book coming back from the early 40s.
Can you tell our viewers a little about comic book grading and maybe even grade a couple of books we have here?
Sure. Grading is definitely very important because the higher the grade, the more valuable a book is. Many people don't realize that. Grading categories begin with a poor, which would be a very worn copy. It's not really very collectible because it's got some real, severe defects. Then you go up to good, which is a little bit better than that. Then very good, which is like an average copy, well read, but certainly collectible. Then fine, then very fine, and then you're into the big bucks with the near mint books. Here are some examples of some books. This is the first appearance of Silver Surfer. Actually, it's Silver Surfer #1 from 1968, and you can see here a crease on the cover. And that's a pretty large crease. Once you get something like that, you're almost automatically in the very good category, which is the average worn category. Also, you can look at the spine of the book and you begin to see what we call stress marks, the white lines appearing on the book from being opened and read. The more stress marks, the lower the grade. Here's a copy of Spider-Man #50.
Gotta love it.
Cover. Yeah. You see that now you don't have any creases along the corners, but you have some minor stress marks along the edge, a little bit round there at the corners, so that puts you in the fine category.
Okay. And lastly, we have Archie.
Archie, here's a book from the 40s, the golden age of comics, and it's tougher to find these in nice condition. You can see here that this book has a rusted staple on both ends of the book, and that's usually an indication of water damage, that it was either stored in the basement or water got to it. And what happens then is that you get other problems, like you could see the pages inside, you see that the pages are starting to chip. And that means the paper is brittling, and that's one of the real problems with comic books, is that they are made out of paper and they don't last forever.
Okay, on today's show, we sent all of our hosts out on treasure hunts to show viewers what they might find at garage sales and flea markets and how much they might be worth. How about this Batman card game? Groovy.
This is pretty cool because this came out in 1966 with the TV show. Very collectible, probably worth $15, $20.
Cool. All right, how about a TV guide from 1976 with my favorite, Starsky and Hutch on the cover?
TV guides are hot. Depends on who's on the cover, but this particular one from 76, probably worth $5.
Okay. How about a nice Teen Titans issue?
Teen Titans are pretty cool. These were the kid friends of Batman and Robin and everyone else. This is worth about $8 in this condition.
Now let's price the stuff that Bill picked up in Toronto and Shashi picked up in L.A. Amazing Spider-Man 97 near mint.
Near mint might be $60.
Alrighty then. A Marvel Superheroes lunchbox from 1976.
Probably $15.
Monster movie lobby card. It's a reproduction of Invasion of the Saucermen from 1957.
Probably $15.
Okay, now coming from Toronto, we have Iron Man and Submariner #1. It's a near mint condition book.
That's a home run, $140.
Next we have Tales of Asgard. It's a reprint from 1968, but it's in very good condition.